Hello friends, welcome to my live stream, and I'm beaming down into your social media accounts directly from my command center. And today in this live stream we have a very interesting discussion which is about the manned mission of Mars. What preparations humans are doing at the moment, what are the agencies which are working together, and some of these facts may be very surprising. And to start with, what is the very first problem that we need to solve in order to have a manned mission to Mars? So let us start our discussion and start our journey towards understanding these very fact. And by the way, friends, I'm live, so you can actually engage with me with your questions and comments. All right. So traveling to Mars is not so easy as it seems, because I think we have been only to Moon, and that too we have carried all our resources with us. The Apollo missions used to be, having very large rockets. They used to fire a huge spacecraft which can carry the astronauts with supplies for almost about 1 week at the most. And so what are the supplies? The food definitely is one, the atmosphere, and the recycling mechanism which could regenerate oxygen, water, etc., recycle, because the spacecraft is a closed system and you don't want to waste any resource. So it's a very unpleasant feeling. And because you're now recycling your air that you breathe, and also drinking the recycled water which is recycled, and a lot of other things are there in this. Now the second experiment humans did is the long-term stay on the International Space Station, and there also we have actually progressed from the Apollo times, and we have now much more advanced machines. But none of these experiments is going to work to support us on this long journey to Mars. Why? Simply because the opportunity for humans to synchronize activities that they are indulging in, it is like this. They have to have work defined. Otherwise, if there is no work, then it will be very difficult for them to just sit idle for 6 to 7 months. So I think there has to be a proper regime that needs to be worked out, and day by day, what are the activities astronauts will have to carry. And since they are doing these activities, the support system has to be robust enough. That means you need to have rather larger aircraft and with more extra resources to be available on board the surface of the aircraft. So I think a lot of research is happening in this area, where the manned mission has to be planned in a very proper way. You just cannot plan a manned mission just like what you see in science fiction movies. And therefore, believe it or not, the NASA, which is the American Space Agency, and the CNSA, which is the Chinese Space Agency. I mean, globally, the Americans and the Chinese are fighting. However, when it comes to space, they are collaborating, and they are actually jointly working on that tech which would be put on the future spacecraft which will be traveling towards Mars. So these agencies are collaborating. Now, what is the first thing that we would need? The first thing is the breathable atmosphere. And since the space is sort of a vacuum, we don't get atmosphere, so we need to carry our own atmosphere which we can live and breathe. Very, very important for survival, because without the atmosphere within the spacecraft, and with at least 20% oxygen within the spacecraft, astronauts will not even survive more than 5 minutes, not even 2 minutes. So this is the most important subject today. And to generate the breathable atmosphere, you need to be able to recycle the carbon dioxide which is being exhaled by the astronauts into useful material. So carbon dioxide has one carbon atom and two oxygen atoms. So if you work on the CO2, you can actually get oxygen out, and this way you can recycle the oxygen back. What happens to the carbon then? Because if you're using some machinery to extract carbon from CO2 and releasing oxygen back into the spacecraft so that the astronauts can breathe. What happens to the extra carbon? The extra carbon can be utilized in many ways. One is that you can generate methane, and methane can be used as a fuel in the spacecraft. Second is that the methane can be further utilized with water, because water is also getting recycled by another process. And once you have the reaction between methane and water, you can actually carry out the same process of generating water and oxygen and hydrogen. So essentially converting the methane into more water, more oxygen, and more hydrogen. So now you have two fuels, which is methane as one fuel and hydrogen as another fuel. After all these different processes are done, you are left with pure carbon, and that pure carbon is called graphite. And all of these reactions are carried out in a machine called Bosch reactor. Bosch reactor is used not only in spacecraft but also in submarines, and also in the underwater permanent stations, if there are, to generate atmosphere and also to generate fuel, water, etc. Because you cannot get the water from any other source. You have to carry a finite amount of water, finite amount of atmosphere, and then you should be able to recycle it. Now, if with Bosch reactor, if you're traveling to moon, it is fine. You can come back after a week or at the most 10 days, and there is no problem. But if you're traveling towards Mars, it's a 6 to 7 months of journey one way after every 2 years. The problem with Bosch reactor is it accumulates carbon or graphite, the pure carbon, which needs to be removed. And if it is not removed, then Bosch reactor will stop to function and probably start mixing the carbon crystals into atmosphere and also into water, which is not a good thing at all. So Bosch reactor needs to be maintained. The graphite which has accumulated after purifying carbon dioxide, etc., needs to be purified and needs to be removed. And even after the methane and water reaction, the pure carbon remains as a waste product. So some of this is a challenge when we are planning our mission to Mars, and therefore the NASA and CNS has started jointly a private challenge, and anybody can participate in this challenge. The prize money for winning this challenge is $45,000, and anyone, even if you're a college student, the only qualification is that you should be 18 plus, and then anyone can come up with solution to this problem. How do you rectify the graphite accumulation problem in our purification system? This challenge is called Particle Partition Challenge 2022, and I think the scientists are very vigorously working on solving this issue of how do we kind of extend the life of the Bosch reactor so that it can continue to generate water and oxygen for breathing purpose without accumulation of extra graphite in its core. So I think this is where the problem is. So I think until and unless we solve this problem, a manned mission to Mars is not going to happen. It's not going to be a reality, because we can build larger spacecraft, we can build a huge launch vehicle, but if we cannot provide life support for our passengers who are going to take 6 to 7 months to reach Mars during the trip itself, we do not have the regime to handle their survival, then this is not going to start in the first place. So I think this is where the challenge is, and I think a lot of work is going on in this arena. Even though Elon Musk said that he wants to see the first Martian mission as soon as in 2029, But until and unless we have the solution of atmosphere creation, a long-term solution which can last for at least 1 year, and also water creation, I think this is not going to start. So I think there are a lot of parallel processing going on.